Today on Locked On Suns, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are in Las Vegas getting ready for the Paris Olympics. And Kevin Durant finally told us what we've all known for a while. He's not going anywhere. We'll dive into his response to all those rumors and what the Olympics mean for Book and Durant coming up next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Brendon Kleen, your host and a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, as well as the host of the Just Basketball Show. Welcome into Locked On Suns. Thank you for making us your first listen to kick off your week. Happy Monday. We are free and available everywhere, so if you have not already, hit follow, hit subscribe. Get a new episode in your feed every single Monday through Friday. Become an everydayer. The offseason's still rolling. There's going to be more trades around the league. The Olympics, as we'll hit today, are coming. You won't want to be anywhere else. Stay locked onto the Phoenix Suns all summer right here by hitting that button. Today's episode brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. The playoffs are winding down across all of sports. The tournaments in soccer are ending. The sports get a little quieter, but this summer FanDuel is making it better for you, hooking up all customers with the boost or a bonus, a boost or a bonus daily. I'm leaving that in. That's right. There's something for everybody every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Joining us as he does every single Monday is Brendon Dueñas. He is a writer over at Bright Side of the Sun. And Brandon, let's just dive in because Kevin Durant gave a sit-down interview to Yahoo Sports senior NBA reporter Vince Goodwill and basically just put to rest all of the rumors, the noise, the nonsense, largely pinned to the Houston Rockets' pseudo-pursuit of him heading into free agency, or really heading into the draft. I'll read him quickly. He said, "You can just press the KD wants to leave button anytime you want to get some attention. Yes, it's a button. What else is going to get people going around this time besides, oh, the journeyman is leaving again? That story is always going to hit." He said it's hard not to hear what they say because people just make up lies and then fans believe them. So what was your reaction to, we've talked about the craziness of the reports already, but what Katie specifically had to say and kind of the choice to even do this interview and say it in the first place?
Yeah, man, it's got to be so frustrating being a player with some of these situations because he's just sitting there and no matter what he does, if he responds on Twitter in live time, then he's sensitive or then he's this and that. So there's no winning in these types of situations. So I feel like he just kind of did it on his own terms, agreed to this interview. And the thing that stood out to me the most was he just said, "I'm talking to Phoenix every day since the season's ended."
Yeah.
The GMs, the coaches, everyone's been locked in. So it seems like he's completely all in. That was my main takeaway, honestly. It was just him bringing that up. The communication's been there, and he seems very, very much about making this work in Phoenix. And everything else is just a distraction. And I liked what he said. It's like, it bothers me that people lie like that. And it bothers me even more that the audience eats up the lies because that's Twitter in a nutshell. Just the news cycle in a nutshell, just the desperation for whether it's clicks or just sometimes exaggerating stories or misinformation getting out there for agent purposes and stretching the truth. Certain reporters have been doing that a lot, and it's got to get old. So I'm glad he did this interview, and probably a couple weeks too late, but you know what? Hey, it's better late than never.
Yeah, that's kind of the part of it that intrigued me. The Rockets stuff, as much as, I think it was a fair question, and I did a show early in the offseason saying that it would really have helped for Ishbia or Durant to do some sort of public comment, whether that was a full-on interview or anything. They both have done it now, right? And Ishbia tweeted after the Rockets stuff came out, because it was so ridiculous, saying that it was ridiculous, reiterating that Durant was sticking around because it rose to the level of a guy like Woj putting it out there. And then now for KD, basically the first moment he had where he knew that he would be in a situation where media would be in place to get his message out, he did it. So, like you said, maybe there's a world where some of this happens faster and it doesn't. But at the same time, to be fair, it didn't really get out of hand. It's not like anyone really believed that there was any sort of negativity happening. And once it got to that point where it started to be that, they both answered it. So I think that's a big credit to both of them.
Tell that to Twitter user Fred VanVleet season 064.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, yeah, Rockets fans I don't even think they can possibly believe it. They got to worry about their front office pissing off their best player in Alperen Şengün by not giving him a max extension right away, considering he was a fringe all-star this year. I think that's the bigger concern than getting a 35-year-old Kevin Durant for I don't know what reason. So I think that part is interesting, right? And I guess my question, some of the stuff that he talked about is just things that he said before when it comes to kind of his purpose. And obviously he's the kind of old guy around in terms of the Olympics, not the oldest player, but the guy who's done it the most times and everything else now in Team USA. But he talked about the drive and then what his role is and how he's played a lot of different roles. We'll get into this a little bit in the next segment, but if we just assume that Durant has kind of been a focal part of everything going on behind the scenes this summer with the Suns and that he's on board with the coach and the roster decisions and keeping the big three together and all those sorts of things, then what are your kind of thoughts about Durant heading into his second full season with the Suns and his third year here? Do you think does this feel like a better situation for him than last year or the year before to you?
I think so. And I think the main thing with me is like, obviously just in basketball in general, it doesn't matter. I'm not just talking about like on a singular season basis. I'm saying like over the course of years, that's how chemistry is developed. I feel like him and Booker are at a point where they kind of know each other's game inside and out at this point heading into the season, which I don't think you could say that this time last year. Bradley Beal to a lesser extent. Obviously they all kind of miss a lot of time and it rotated, but I think continuity, like I know Suns fans hate that word at this point, but between stars is important. And I think they're going to have more of that entering the season. I think having a guy like Morris is going to help them a lot to bring that stability and decision-making. And Coach Bud using him in a different setting, I think Durant's going to have a lot of input on his role. I'm sure, not to say that he didn't last year, but I think he's going to see that last year just really didn't work in certain stretches. And how can we put him in a better position to succeed? I think that's the key for the Suns. It's not about Durant is the guy, right? He's still very good. He's still an all-NBA level talent, but how you use him is important, and you want to set him up for success. So I think the Suns roster and their infrastructure, they have a little bit more athleticism, a little more size. I think the bench is a little bit better than it was entering this time last year, and with more proven commodities instead of hopeful home runs.
Yeah, to me, Bud is I don't know. I've been thinking about this, and it's not one-to-one, but Bud feels a little bit like Monty as a coach to me in terms of kind of the offensive and defensive structure, where I think that he kind of is going to bring more of a cohesive system, build that into what the Suns want to do, and then give his players freedom to kind of make reads off of that. And that sounds simple, and that's where, I mean, their systems might not be the same, but they have that kind of confidence in their ability to just have the habits and the structure be the point, especially on the offensive end, where he is going to be able to occupy a bunch of different roles, but he's going to have the comfort to know that he can shoot, he can pass, he can set a screen, he can come off of a screen, he can play off the ball in space, or he can play fast or slow, and I think he'll just kind of know what he's supposed to be doing a little bit better, given that Bud has a track record of bringing that out of players. And then I would say that, the other thing that might sound basic or obvious, but the vets that this team brought in and the priority to just have experience and depth this year over kind of these lottery ticket players like they did last year, it should allow him to not overtax himself early in the year like he had to do. I mean, even if Beal had gotten hurt, which we just assume build that into whatever happened at the beginning of last year, and then Book missed a few games early, even if they had that happen, but they had a guy like a Monte Morris or a Mason Plumlee or players like that, I still think Durant probably doesn't have to do so much. It became too much to handle. And so, a season where he can play a little bit less and not be overtaxed would be huge for him to be maximized come April and everything else. So I think the moves that they've made have gone a long way to just getting the most out of him and making this group fit a little bit better. But let's talk about what Paris could mean, what this Team USA experience could mean for both Durant and Booker. We know that when the Olympics come around, players have to kind of slide and evolve a little bit into something that they aren't necessarily used to. So we'll get into what that could look like coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. We love sports here on the Locked On Podcast Network, and of course you at home do as well, so much that we never want them to stop, but as the postseasons and tournaments all wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports just aren't quite what we want them to be. FanDuel is letting you keep the sports going whenever you want all summer. All you got to do, open the app, dream up bets anytime you're in the mood, and this summer, FanDuel's hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus. Got it right that time. Daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. I'm looking at the Copa America on Wednesday, the semifinal on Wednesday. We have Luis Suarez, the best goal scorer on Colombia by far, plus 260 to score. Did I say Suarez? I meant to say Diaz. And then we have Darwin and Suarez as well at plus 230, plus 260, and Diaz is at plus 350. I love the goal scorer odds because they're all plus, but you can get kind of the obvious guys, and your odds are pretty decent. So that's something to look at. Of course, there's winners, losers on all of it, and more as the summer rolls along. Check it out at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And we're back. Let's keep it rolling here, talking Team USA. I'll give it to you open-ended, Brandon. What are you looking at? What are you paying attention to? What kind of interests you from a Suns, from a Durant, from a Booker standpoint within this star-studded Team USA that people are comparing to, the dream team, the redeem team, the best teams that this country's ever put out there on the basketball court?
Yeah, it's first of all, it's going to be a fun team. I think it goes without saying that health is obviously, as a Suns fan, the number one thing. We just hope both those guys get back into training camp healthy. Outside of that, as far as like specific roles, I think Olympic Book was kind of trademarked during his last run. And I think seeing some more of that and how that could apply towards his role he plays with Durant and Beal within Bud's system is going to be huge. So I think continuing to do those little things, making a defensive impact, hitting those catch and shoot threes. We saw, Anthony Edwards hit Book on a little corner jumper today. There's little things like that. He's just being in the right place at the right time. Like that's what makes this team so deadly, is being filled with all these number one options that create so much attention every time they touch the ball. Is like guys that are not used to getting wide open shots are going to be wide open. So I think for guys like Booker and Durant specifically, they're just going to be in a role where they're not going to have to do too much and kind of let the game come to them, and that'll be nice to see. So to me, outside of health, that's the other thing, just saying like how demanding they are as well, like how assertive is Book going to be offensively, how is this team going to look as a whole, because like you said, from a talent perspective, this is one of the best teams I think they've ever thrown out there. Obviously some guys are past their prime and everything, but it's going to be a really fun group, and I think I'm interested to see like what their roles are and how much time they get.
Yeah, it feels like Durant will start, right? So, and he's earned that. It feels to me like a lot of people are sort of, it's going to be down to one open starter spot between Steph, KD, LeBron, and Embiid starting. Who do you think gets the fifth spot?
It's tough. I think Anthony Edwards, to me right now, just as far as the defensive impact and the two-way ability, like I feel like he could make some sense. It really is tough though. Like there's so many options.
Feels like him or Drew, right? I mean, it kind of like Drew. If you're building like a lineup that you want to make sense, because Steph is not somebody you want. I know there's not like a Ja Morant at the FIBA level, but you still don't want Steph to be your point of attack defender. Yeah.
So what I would like is Drew to start, because I think he could do all those little things and really excel in that role. And then you have Ant and Book backcourt off the bench. Like to me, leading that other unit, I'm not going to call him second unit because it's really just two first units, but it's to me like that would be a fun backcourt to watch. So either way though, I mean Drew and Book together too. Like there's a lot of different lineups they can throw out there. I think their versatility across the board is fun. Like there's so many directions they can go.
Yeah, I've seen people. The other question, right, is like who's gonna lose time? Like who's gonna kind of be relegated to more of a deep bench, maybe in the biggest games, kind of a DNP type of situation. And Halliburton, I feel like is an obvious one off the top. But you know, if they're playing 10 guys max, then you got to find another player who's not going to play. Maybe you just say Kawhi from a health standpoint. But I kind of think like, would he choose to come if he was fine with that? I mean, Tatum's been on multiple World Cup and Olympic teams, so I know, and he just won a title. Like, is he really not going to play? I mean, that's a very interesting subplot. I mean, my guess is probably Halliburton and Bam go to the bench the most if everybody's healthy. Does that feel right?
I think so. I think it's going to be tough though. Like, especially with a team like this, you're going to want to give these guys as much of a chance to get in a rhythm as they can. So you don't want to like chop their minutes up to a point where they're just out there for like a few like 4 or 5 minute stretches. And then I feel like it's really tough to develop that rhythm. So there's definitely going to be 2 or 3, maybe even 3 or 4 guys that end up the odd man out. So it really just depends on health, matchups, all that good stuff. So I think Bam could be that guy, but there's going to be certain matchups where against those bigger teams where they could use Bam. So it's tough to tell at this moment, but there's definitely going to be a couple players that may be expected to play that end up a little disappointed in the end.
Yeah, I guess the only other thing I was going to say in terms of the rotation and roles and everything else is, and just kind of a team that makes sense, which is sometimes, as we've seen, harder to build out despite the talent than you might think, is Book's shooting ability, just spot-up shooting, as basic as that is going to go a long way. And I think that's going to be a reason why he could see, because like Heat fans, Pacers fans, whatever, Clippers fans, they're probably sitting there putting Book on the list of guys who might get less minutes. But to me, his ability to just space the floor and knock down shots and the willingness we saw in Tokyo a couple years ago to be a point of attack defender, to be a playmaker, to go box out and get a rebound and embrace kind of what is needed in these situations is the biggest, that'll help, but his ability to shoot is probably going to be the most valuable thing he brings. I mean, even that 2021 team, like they had that actually, so he kind of didn't have to do it because they had Levine and Lillard and obviously KD and Middleton and Tatum who could take threes. He played 22 minutes. I have the box score up from the final game. He played 22 minutes. He only took 4 shots, but he was just doing everything else. So I think this year it might actually change a little bit where he does take threes more and maybe doesn't have to do so much of that other stuff, and that kind of is where his value comes in. But that brings me to the thing that I think is going to be the most valuable is it's obviously a little bit of an exaggeration to say it's going to be quite at the same level, but I do think that Book and KD having to play with great players and kind of do a little bit of the other stuff, I just think nothing's changed with the roster to make me think on the Suns that's not going to be an element of what they're going to have to do to be there for the Suns to be their best this year is, embrace some of that stuff that's not so glamorous. So, maybe it's a little bit of wishful thinking, but, might not be a bad thing for Book to be chasing guys around at the point of attack a bunch and, that type of thing, because I think that's what he's headed for this fall.
He better. I love Book. I love Durant. I love Beal. These guys need to do the dirty work if they want to win a championship. That's 3/5 of your starting lineup. You can't have 3 guys being too cool to dive on the floor for a ball. Like if they want to take that next leap, obviously the role players I think have to play better and knock down shots, all that good stuff, like obviously. But I think the thing that could really move the needle for them the most is if those 3 guys really truly embrace doing those things that lead to winning basketball. And that's where it starts, is on the defensive side. We need to see a leap from all 3 of those guys. And I think Durant is probably the one I would take an exception to, because I think he actually had a very good defensive season and did some things on that end, given the context of the team he was on. But Book and Beal, I would like to see a defensive leap. Absolutely. I think it's imperative. I think not only defensively, but just we need to see Olympic Book every night. because it's a habit, right? Like you can't just turn it on in the playoffs. Like you have to be doing this throughout the season, as consistent as you can. And I think having better infrastructure around them defensively should help. But like if they want to win a championship, plain and simple, that needs to be a regular thing. It can't be like, oh, like he did this tonight. Like it was a nice defensive performance. Like no, it needs to be, this is who he is now. Otherwise, they're not going to win a championship. It's really that simple.
Yeah, we saw moments of it from all three, I think you would have to say, but I wouldn't say any of the three of them were put into a position where they consistently were able to do those things, even Durant. And I mentioned at the beginning or in the last segment, like a lot of that was how much he was being asked to do on the offensive end and some of the lack of structure that resulted in, hey, let's just throw it to this dude on the elbow or in the post a bunch, and that's exhausting to do, and the minutes and of course we all know why, but assuming the health and the depth and everything is a little better this year, and those guys don't have to be outstretched like that, then the expectation is all of three of them are going to have to do it every single night. And just to close out, I guess the final game in 2021, and that was obviously less star-laden. Only 9 guys played in the gold medal game, and LaVine and Draymond LaVine and Middleton played 14 or fewer minutes. So it was really like 7 guys. It's going to be fascinating to see. Just the idea of like Kawhi Leonard or Joel Embiid or Anthony Davis or something, just like getting 8 minutes in the gold medal game of an Olympics. But that's what we're headed for. It's going to be fun. All right. Last thing before we get out of here, the Suns announced their Summer League roster, so we know who will be surrounding Ryan Dunn, Oso Ighodaro, Jalen Bridges, and et cetera, in Vegas starting Saturday night. We'll give our first impressions on the rookies and the rest of the squad and our expectations for Las Vegas Summer League coming up next. First, today's show brought to you by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy. It's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on social media, but in reality, a lot of us don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want and what you have instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. I've said it before. I will say it again. Therapy does not have to be for any sort of emergency in your life or some sort of super painful experience necessarily. It can just be about setting boundaries, learning positive coping skills, being the best version of who you are. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's online, convenient, flexible, suited to your schedule. All you got to do to get started is fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge, keeping it easy, simple, straightforward, and accessible for you. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. All right, let's close it out here, Brandon. So, as expected, James Jones said this at their introductory press conferences last week. All three of Dunn, Ighodaro, and Jalen Bridges are all going to be participating in Las Vegas Summer League for the Suns. We knew some of the names beyond those guys. Boo Buie, Tyson Walker, I believe, was reported before that. And then some names, I believe, that are Quindary Weatherspoon, I believe, is on the Suns G League team coming off of the draft. He's a 28-year-old, but hey, they'll take some solid point guard play. And the surprise to me was David Roddy, that he will be back, and that Colin Gillespie is not on this team, even though he signed a 2-way contract with the Suns. So what was your reaction to seeing how all this lined up, and kind of what are your hopes for the Summer League squad that the Suns have put together?
It's been a long time since I've been excited to watch Phoenix Suns Summer League basketball, and this isn't the sexiest roster in the world. It's not like they have like any guys that we're projecting to be stars, but there's a lot of guys that could excel in certain roles, which I think makes it very fun to see what they do in a more expanded role in this type of setting. Obviously, Summer League basketball can get very ugly at times because these are guys that are not very familiar with each other, trying to kind of short circuit a training camp and fit everything into like a very small amount of time. But to me, like David Roddy, I don't think that was a coincidence. I think this is a test run for him, trial run, whatever you want to call it, to see if he's someone that they want to invest a roster spot in, because they could still, obviously he's under contract, but you don't have to guarantee him anything at this point. So I think if it's going to be kind of a little bit of an audition for him in a sense, or just I could be reading into it too much, and this could just be him just getting more burn. So to me, they have an older roster overall. Like I think Lesby probably, I don't know if he was dealing with an injury or something or what, but I was a little disappointed to see he wasn't on it. I think Boo Buie is probably going to be a guy that Suns fans fall in love with. He'll be fun. And then outside of that, I'm just really looking forward to see what the two rookies can do in Dunn and Oso. I think Dunn, I'm really not really going to look too much into like the things that they're not going to be asked to do next year. It's more about like envisioning them into what they have in their current roster. So like that's the way I kind of view, especially role players. It'd be great if Dunn goes out there and looks like, Michael Jordan and hits jump shots and does everything. But being realistic, like I'm just looking at his defense, his catch and shoot ability, his cutting, slashing, all that kind of stuff, and Oso's playmaking and defense. So Bridges as well, 3-and-D. Like they have some talent, man. It's going to be tough. It's already tough to score in summer league sometimes, but it's going to be very tough to score on this team.
Yeah, it's these two guys I think are a hard group to analyze, a hard duo to analyze in summer league for the reasons you said. Yep. Although I will agree, this is the most. I don't even think it's close, but this is probably the only summer league Suns team that anybody has cared about since DeAndre Ayton played in summer league, because they did not put Cam Johnson and Ty Jerome on the court in 2019 because of the moratorium. Those guys were both acquired as part of things that couldn't be finished until July 6th, and Summer League used to be earlier back then, so they didn't play at all. And since then, the Suns hold Jalen Smith, there was no Summer League, and then the past few years, they've just punted on it completely. So that's worth watching at the very least. But yeah, these guys will be hard to evaluate, I think. I mean, in a way, like, I think Oso could be somebody that probably pops more in like the traditional things we watch, because he could, have some finishes on the pick and roll, have some smart passes in the short roll. He could, get some blocks, get some switching opportunities where he looks good, and just honestly, compared to a lot of bigs in summer league, like the bar is so low that him doing smart stuff and displaying skill is going to flash. But Dunn, to me, it's like you're just looking for some moments where he just absolutely clamps some poor G leaguer and, makes them come crying home. Like that's really it. Because the offensive stuff, like the spacing, the talent, the passing, the play, it's not going to be there for him to thrive, I don't think.
Yeah, no, Dunn's going to have a few. He might not have the prettiest summer league. Like I'm not expecting too much in terms of like offensive usage and all that stuff, but he's absolutely going to have at least 3 or 4 clips that go semi-viral in terms of just whatever, just Suns Twitter, of him doing exactly that, just clamping someone up, blocking a shot, like pinning a shot against a backboard, just being an absolute pest. Like I think we're going to get that for sure. Anything else he does, like obviously we'd love to see him hit some threes and maybe show a little bit more with the handle, but again, that's not really what he's going to be asked to do. So I agree. Oso is probably going to be the one that fans get the most excited from in this context. And Bridges will be interesting to watch too. I do think he's an NBA player. I don't know. There's just a lot to like about this team, but there's no really like true engine, I think, that really there's a couple guys like Weatherspoon and Boo are both going to be a little bit more offensively inclined in this situation, but overall they have a lot of options. I mean, it's pretty balanced.
We don't know who's coaching this team yet, which is a little weird. Usually they announce it as part of the roster, not only the head coach, but just kind of what portion of the coaching staff is going to be traveling to Vegas. I It may be out there, but I have not seen anything, and I just did a quick search before we hit record and didn't see it. So that'll obviously matter in terms of just you would like to see kind of the structure and the way that they want to play going into effect already, and especially for the players we expect to get minutes at some point during the regular season. But I mean, this is the kind of Summer League team, setting aside it being the Suns and everything else, and whatever year the last time that they cared about Summer League was with Ayton, but it's also the type of Summer League team that I just like to watch the most regardless, where it actually has several players who could be factors in the NBA. Like, I know we all like some of the, got like the Lakers team right now, where like we're all kind of intrigued by Bronny, and obviously Connect is out there. But beyond that, it's like, I don't know these guys. I don't really care. It's not really mattering. Whereas the Suns could put a lineup out there with both of the Suns draft picks, Bridges, Bowie, and Roddy or something, and like, I want to see every minute that those guys are all out there, and they could actually play together in the G League or play together on the Suns. And like, there's going to be a lot to learn here for sure.
Yeah, they have several guys that either are going to be NBA players or have been, and they're an older team, so I feel like they're going to have a little bit of a leg up in that sense. So the Summer Suns title, it's in motion right now. We'll put it that way. If they really try, I think this team has enough to go out and get one. David Roddy MVP. Anyone?
Oh wow.
We'll see.
What would he have to do to get an MVP in the Summer League?
He'll probably have to get like a near triple double type of stat line. I mean, the assist's probably not going to happen, but
averaging it. I mean, right? Like,
yeah.
If you're talking about MVP. Yeah, he's like a 12, and 8 or something. Let's see if he can do it. Yeah, shout out to Quindary Weatherspoon for doing this, by the way. I'm sure, hopefully they take him out to a nice dinner at one of the great restaurants in Las Vegas for his efforts. Was in college forever, so he's only been in the league for 3 years, but he's turning 28 this year. Like he's kind of already like probably gonna not be an NBA guy, and he's still doing this, So shout out. Love the guys who are team players, good sports in that way. But yeah, plenty more to talk about as Summer League rolls around. Just wanted to give the first impressions now that the roster is out. So we have Olympic qualifiers, exhibitions, Summer League. The WNBA break is coming. It is very much summer in the world of basketball. That's how it goes, but that's all right. There's more than most years, so that's all good. That'll wrap us up for the day, though. Hit follow or subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have shows throughout the week. I will be in Vegas for Summer League, giving you recaps of at least the first game. Their schedule sucks, but hey, what are you going to do? So I'll have that Saturday night, and we'll keep this thing going all off season long. Read the guys at Bright Side of the Sun as well, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.